some of our former Up Next artists are like Billie Eilish, Bad Bunny, Khalid, her. And so we are fired up that you are the latest Apple Music Up Next artist. What is true about the guy that made Gold Chain Cowboy was true with the first album? Was it called The Limestone Kid? Limestone Kid?
Yes, ma'am.
What's still true from that kid to right now?
Um, I don't think I look at it any differently than I did back then, as far as from like a creative process, or how I like approach, being the performing side of it. All of that is really the same, and it's just going out and having fun on stage. And then when you're in the songwriting mode and you're in the creative mode, just really, trying to be as honest and as vulnerable. And I'm not a vulnerable person. I don't really, I'm A1 all the time. No problem here. Always in a good mood, always ready to roll. But everybody has, thoughts and emotions and stuff that you got to deal with, however. And so songwriting is kind of my time, I think, to do that. That doesn't sound very cool, but it's true. And so all of that is really remained the same. I mean, all those songs still come. I'm still trying to channel the way that I felt when I was 10 years old into a song at 29, and so I don't feel any different. All of that is still pretty much the same.
So 3 albums in, I look at your career and I just see upward trajectory. But to your point, you were just saying, it's like, of course there are setbacks. Of course there are, moments that you doubt yourself. Have there been moments where you wondered if you were on the right path, or you thought about, like, is music really how I want to spend my life?
Probably about 10 days this summer. But yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, and that's kind of, I always talk about the music business when I discuss this with people, but, I think it kind of pertains to anything in life. Like, there's some days that are really good, and doesn't matter what you're doing in life, and you're gonna have some days that are bad. And there have definitely been days where I'm like, even recently, that I'm like, man, what am I doing? Am I doing this right? Like, everything feels so wrong that day. And then the next day you wake up and it's like, everything's just clicking. So, I mean, I go back and forth with that all the time.
I know this is kind of an impossible task, and it might be an annoying. I've been asked this question. I've probably thought this was annoying, but I'm curious. Like, if I made you distill yourself into one song, like if there's one song that is like, who is Parker McCollum, at least in this moment in time, what is that song?
Of my own songs?
Mm-hmm.
Young Man's Blues.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. It's like I'm like living that song still, and it's been out for almost a year. So
is that one of those songs that for you became more true after it came out?
Most of it, it's so funny. And that talk about like what's the same now that was the same, that's similar to how it was back then. I remember I first started writing songs, or first wrote that first album. I would write songs, and then like the following year, I would be like, wow, that really makes sense now. Like, why is my life in a place that's describing now? It's supposed to be a previous experience. And Young Man's Blues is like just spot on all the time. And I hadn't listened to the actual song. We play it all the time, but I hadn't listened to anything on that record, like in my headphones at the house. Like, I always I don't listen to myself, I listen to my favorite artist. And I listened to it the other day, and I almost got teary eyed. I was like, man, that is, I feel like I just wrote that song yesterday about, what's going on this summer. So it's kind of a cool dynamic with songwriting, to sometimes it just eats you alive like that later on.
Yes, it does. And I think that's that thing about songs is they get finished, right? They get written, but the life that they have beyond it, they are living, breathing things that kind of continue to evolve, even though it's the weirdest dynamic. And I think a really beautiful thing as well. Okay, let's wrap on this question. And the album is massive, and it sounds so damn good. And it's been exciting, of course, to watch, you rake in that first #1 single. To Be Loved by You is trucking. So lots of exciting stuff is happening in this moment. But if we reflect on just the album right now, who is the Gold Chain Cowboy, and where are you sitting with this album now, having had a couple months in the world?
I started writing the next album about 2 weeks before Gold Chain Cowboy came out. As soon as it was in the can, and we made it in such an unconventional process. It was my first full album, or first full length album on a major label. It had been delayed because of the pandemic, and we made it through all these different studios and all this just crazy way. It was like just throwing pieces together, and Gold Chain Cowboy is what came out of it. And so I haven't really gotten to like go through this traditional process. It was just super different. But I've already started writing the next one. I don't really, every time I put a record out, I just try not to, it eats at me so much. I always think it's just really bad and I miss the mark and all this stuff. And then every record I've put out has just done so well for me. And I was wrong every time. So I'm just hoping that I was wrong this time, and that, people are really, it seems like, I mean, we play all those songs at the shows and people lose it to hear the new stuff. And that's always a really good feeling as an artist, when people are digging your new stuff as much as they're excited to hear your old stuff. So
cheers to being wrong. That's awesome.
Sometimes it pays pretty good.